In the high-stakes world of casinos, the old adage, "the house always wins," takes on a whole new meaning with artificial intelligence. The integration with artificial intelligence and Las Vegas casinos is not just about finding people who are cheating, it's also increasingly about milking the profits. In this video, I'm gonna look at ways that artificial intelligence is used for casinos to maintain their edge and increase their business. Now, casinos are unique in just how highly surveilled their entire properties are. But behind the cameras, there's actually humans who are trained in the nuances of human behaviors in a way that very few other places are. So of course, if you go to a Walmart or a Target, there's gonna be cameras everywhere, and of course they're looking for thieves. But in reality, there's not the same incentive to get to the nuances of body language, to find out the exact patterns in the way that you move, in the way that your facial expressions work, and all of the other tiny little things that can help catch a cheater at a poker table. Think about it from the casino's point of view. If they're even a little bit lax in the way that they surveil, the way that they understand how a potential cheater might be signaling to somebody else, or using some other kind of technology to get some of the edge back from the casino, they're either all the way losing their edge and they're actually losing money, or they're not winning as much as they would have without noticing it. So there's always the incentive to take it that extra mile. So for the many decades before artificial intelligence was even an option, these casinos have been paying close attention to what it is people do when they gamble. And from there, they've built out profiles and educational systems for just what it is that a new employee should be looking for. Often extensively testing new employees before they're even allowed to look at these cameras. They're shown countless hours of people who were caught cheating so that they can try to learn some of those subtle tells. In fact, it's super common that if you are caught cheating, that you actually can sometimes even be employed by a casino after that to help learn the techniques, to help teach their employees to go in there and cheat under surveillance knowingly so that they can test to see if somebody else could even see it. And even if it doesn't compare to what's on offer today, for decades, these casinos have been using facial recognition technology. And using their knowledge, previous data, and the cutting-edge AI technology of today, modern-day casinos are painting an unbelievably precise picture of every single person who walks in the door. And these systems are starting to capture the most subtle ways of cheating that you could imagine, sometimes imperceptible to the human eye, but noticeable by an artificial intelligent eye in the sky. I want to start by telling you what games the house actually has the largest edge in. So when we're talking about edge, we're saying that when somebody sits down to play, say, a slot machine, we know that on average they're going to lose, but the payout might be close to 80 or 90%, meaning in the long run, the casino is collecting 5% of the amount of money that's going into the system. So that's what the edge is. The casino has an edge on every game, but some games more than others. And if you want to play the game with the smallest edge, that's the one that benefits you, the customer, the most, then you might be interested in single deck blackjack. Now, this doesn't mean you can just jump up there and play however you want. You have to know exactly how to play it. You need to be trained on it. You need to be kind of an expert. But if you do, you can get the edge down to 0.5%. But of course, you can't let the music distract you, the football game that's on the TV, or any drinks in your system throw you off, because that's perfect strategy. If that's not your game, the next best thing you can do is play a specific way on the craps table. The odds bet in craps actually carries no house edge. That's a true 50-50 chance. However, you can't just play that out of the blue. You have to first put money on either the pass or don't pass bet before you can do that. And that one, they still have an edge on. So combining the two means they still have an edge. You could also try Baccarat and make the banker's bet, is what they call it. By betting on the banker, you're offering the house only a 1% edge. So it's one of the simplest bets you can make and still has really good odds for the player. I mean, not more than 50-50, but still, only 1% down. It's not that much different than flipping a coin. Surprisingly, video poker also made the cut. Now, you have to know the right strategy, but in some cases, on some machines, you can get that down to about 0.5% too. But now let's flip the script on it. Maybe you don't want to play optimally, but you don't want to be the guy who's throwing away money on the dumbest games. What are those? What are the games with the worst odds? Well, I can answer that easy. The worst game, the game you should never play, Keno. It basically goes Keno, then the lottery. They have a 25% edge on that game. It is one of the dumbest ways to spend your money at a casino. Slot machines end up being kind of a mixed bag. Some of them aren't too bad with maybe a 2 or 3% house edge, but some of them go up to 15, 16%. Generally, the more glamorous a machine is, the more it takes your money. American roulette with the 00 on it also is a really bad bet. Now, if you play it in Europe, it doesn't have the 00, so that makes it better. But in America, the house has a 5.26% edge. In Europe, it's about 2.7. Caribbean stud poker is another bad move, giving the casino a 5% edge. And surprisingly, the Big Six Wheel of Fortune game can have a house edge of up to 11%. Of course, it's not even worth mentioning here, but if you were to play the lottery, your odds are about 1 in 222 million. Yeah. So that's the house edge that the casinos want to protect. So now let's walk through what happens when you actually walk in the door of one of these casinos and those eyes in the sky spot you. So the first thing the camera vision system is doing is trying to figure out if you're already in the database or you're a new person. Now, to measure that, there's an artificial intelligence system that's been trained on faces, but to break it down as something you can digest, think about the distance between your eyes, the distance between your eyes and your mouth, the length of your lips, the protrusion of your nose. Those are kind of the main factors that make us all completely unique when you look at our faces. So all of these distances are measured and you are giving a unique profile based on those distances. Now, instantly, if that number is already in the database, they're gonna match you to potentially any other data that's been associated with you, player's card, hotel rooms, things like that. And if you don't show up, like most people who just walk in and then walk back out, then you're just given a unique identifier. But if you come back in the casino weeks, months, years later, still in the database. But now let's talk about where the really honed in, the most incredible systems that are on the market right now really are focused. And that's when you sit down to play something like a card game. Let's imagine that you're sitting there playing 21. You've got their edge. So you can think of the AI in a casino like that really observant friend of yours, but they're trying to figure out if you're a casual or a professional gambler.
You sussy baka.
Now, of course, I don't know the exact secret sauce that these casinos have honed in on to actually tell who's the professional and who's the amateur, but let's just think through a few things for a minute. I could imagine that a casual gambler plays more random bets. Maybe they don't play strategically, they don't sort of optimize over time, so you might see a lot of variation in the way that they're like,
$5 here, $3 here, $10 here, kind of on a whim.
Or playing with the maximum edge you can get. Now, another thing is that artificial intelligence systems, computer vision, it's just more accurate and it can find more patterns than the human eye. So it may very well have been trained on tens or thousands of hours of people cheating, and there's patterns in there that are too subtle to explain. Something as subtle as just the way people's shoulders are, the way their elbows rest on the table. There could be patterns in the way people touch their face that slip under human cognition, but a computer AI system is just gonna see a pattern and tag it. Now, even though catching cheaters and keeping a house edge is one of the top priorities of these surveillance systems, there's actually something else that matters almost as much. And that's identifying the people's faces who are connected to the biggest wallets, the ones that will spend the most money at the casino. I mean, just think about it for a second. A casino's edge, even if they lost a little bit of it, might be much more profitable if it goes to a big whale, somebody who's spending tons of money. A casino can either minimize the losses or they can maximize the gains. So the next thing these casino cameras are doing are they're trying to figure out which are the gamblers who have the ability to even lose big. Of course, win big too, but on average, lose big. So the same camera visions with pattern recognition systems from training data that learned how gamblers cheat also learn patterns of people who spend big. And once one of these whales or big spenders is actually identified, that information is usually relayed to the pit boss. Okay, so now the pit boss, in case you don't know who that is, that's a single person who usually stands in the center of a group of table games, and they have a very special job. And what they're doing is not focusing on each individual game, but taking the 10,000-foot view of all of the money coming into the casino and how all of the gambling is being played. So the pit boss is the two eyeballs that aren't up in the cameras, and they can be directed through a radio from somebody in the back room to look out for somebody who they think might be cheating, or it might be looking out for somebody who might be a big spender. So along with supervising the casino staff, making sure that the customer relationships are there, monitoring the games for cheating, managing the financial transactions, enforcing the rules and policies, handling emergencies and disputes, they are doing it all, right? And these pit bosses have a sense for when more money than usual is starting to come in, and they zone in on it. They might notify upper management or the local cocktail waitress or a casino host, anything to make this guy feel welcomed and spend more money. In fact, sometimes these pit bosses radioed all the way up to the CEO. In fact, Steve Wynn was famous for coming down when big spenders were spending money and saying hi to them personally. But that's not just the end of computer vision, because these eyes in the sky might say, wow, this guy's spending big, get him some more drinks, get him a free hotel room, get him all the things that he wants to keep spending. But there's a tipping point, and also some of these casinos can get themselves into trouble if they let somebody continue to gamble and that person is either too drunk, they might be on drugs, they might have been playing so long that they feel like maybe it's time to cut them off. Because if somebody is not able to act in their own best interest when they're giving their money away, then that's going to turn into a lawsuit. And oftentimes the people who have the money to spend that much also have money for lawyers. So once again, the artificial intelligence system and the team in the back watching the cameras and the pit boss, they're also looking for tell signs that somebody's actually in control of their own person, that they can bet reasonably. So even if the money's rolling in, these artificial intelligence systems might start saying, hey, I think this guy is a really high risk for becoming a lawsuit. I think this person has lost control. That information goes down to the pit boss, goes down to the eyes in the sky, and if everybody starts to find out that that's the consensus, this guy needs to be cut off. Once again, protecting the profits of the casino. But hey, don't get it wrong. Even if one of these high rollers, these whales, one of the top 1% spenders, gets themselves cut off, the system will still put them in a very special position. A high roller like that, even when they're cut off, is going to be treated to luxury. Let me get you some food. Why don't we get you some water? Why don't we put you in a really nice suite? They will be taken care of and they will be remembered by the system. Because when they sober up, free flight, free hotel room, free transport are all back on the table. And once again, this is another place where artificial intelligence is starting to play a role. Figuring out what it is that can bring these whales back into the casino, even after they've gone home months after their experience. It's trying to figure out what it is that will actually tempt them to come back into the casino and start playing again. This is where AI starts to interact with players' cards, with marketing, and different events that are happening at the casino. In fact, I would bet that all of these systems have copious amounts of information. Probably the favorite kind of steaks that they ordered at the restaurant, their favorite drinks that they ordered when they were at the bar, maybe even the type of clothing they bought, how much time they spent at the pool, the age and gender demographics of all the people that were in the party with them, potentially really complex interaction information about who they were talking to, because remember, if two people are talking, the system knows them both by their unique identifier and might be able to bring the two out together if it realizes that they're friends, or correlate it with an event that's happening at the casino or a nearby casino. So now imagine this huge database, all full of unique identifiers with time and date stamps, face information about anybody who's ever walked in and out of the casino. In this system, you can bet that everybody is given a score. Now, what kind of score? Could be a bunch of individual ones, could be aggregate scores, could be player scores, could be money spending numbers. You can bet that after each person, there's a long list of information that's trying to be associated with that person. Like recurring frequency, time spent in casino, the amount of money spent in the casino, betting volumes, daily averages, risk appetites, win-loss ratios, remaining chips, past dishonest behavior, flags, stuff like that. Propensity to just being an addicted gambler if they seem like there's some kind of high risk there that they could be sued for, probably even net worth that's been looked up from outside information, and a whole lot more I can't think of right now. An AI can look at all these variables and come up with a specific score for each person. In fact, the most modern casinos now actually even have RFID readers baked into each of the chips people are playing with. And games like Baccarat are actually fitted with RFID sensors, so there's a record of where all the chips are, what they're placed on, how much there should be wins and losses, and that can all be correlated to what kind of money is actually coming in and out of the game. And of course, instantly tied to the user's profile information and reused for future, for marketing or whatever. Now, of course, how all this information is being used and how profitable it is and how much of an edge it keeps the casino having, that's all proprietary information. So I'm not going to be able to tell you exactly what's going on behind the scenes. But if I just want to base where their technology is, at least on what is already out there in terms of open source computer vision, it's very likely that the casinos have an advanced understanding of our behaviors when we're in them. And remember, artificial intelligence will soon be superhuman. I don't think it will be about notifying people in the back room to keep a human eye on it as much as it won't even have a human in the loop. These systems have become so good at doing things like reading MRIs and translating and understanding verbal patterns, translating voice to text, that I think we might have full transcripts of everything that's being said in casinos at this point. And who knows what else in terms of body language and retina scanning. I mean, these casinos have an incentive to build all this stuff and use all this stuff today. And also, it shouldn't be downplayed just how much these kind of systems can actually teach humans to be better too. So with AlphaGo, you know, the game that's sort of like chess, but it's big in Asia, where you move all those little dots around, kind of like Othello, those world-class players that were losing to the best in artificial intelligence systems are now better than they ever were before they started getting beaten, because the machine is now showing them all sorts of techniques that were just never discovered before. And I have to imagine that some of these systems in the background have identified somebody who's cheating. The pit boss has gone over and said, hey, you gotta go. I can't really tell you why, you just gotta go. And later, humans pored over that footage and figured out what it is that the machine saw that they didn't. And then, of course, those humans learned from that and then taught people what to look for, and now all of a sudden they're better at catching cheaters than they ever were before. So next time you're in a casino gambling, don't forget, right above you is a super observant camera. A camera connected to an artificial intelligence system, a camera that never blinks, a camera that watches every move, and a camera that always remembers. Even if you didn't get caught today, you might get caught the next time you walk into that casino. So I would recommend not cheating ever at a casino. So now do me a favor, place a winning bet on that subscribe button. Help me get to my next goal, 10,000 subscribers. Thanks for watching.